right. Good evening. How is everybody? I'm still on a sugar high from the cookies, or not from the cookies, from the eggs. No, not really. But it was a good Easter party. We do appreciate those that organized it and worked so hard, gave it so much thought and effort. We appreciate you and all the efforts that you did with that. And the kids enjoyed it, and that's the main thing. So we're glad that they were able to enjoy it. This falls off in the middle of my service. There we go. Got it. Having trouble with that today. You might tell me I'm getting a little bit too big for my britches. So might have to fix that. There was a 44-year-old lady that was having some issues physically. And so she had talked to her husband and she decided to go to the doctor. He went with her. They ran several tests, and she was sitting in the room waiting for the doctor to come in. And he said, I don't know exactly why you're here, but congratulations are in order. And she said, well, I'm here because I think something serious is going on with me. And he said, well, it may be, but he said, you're pregnant. And she said, oh, no. And he said, yes, ma'am, we are very sure you are pregnant. And she said, I'm 44 years old. And she looked at her husband, and they had 3 children. One was married, the other was in college, and the other was in high school, fairly much grown. And she looked at her husband, and she said, I'm too old for this. And he said, you might be, but guess what we got coming? We often look at our lives, and that's one of the things we say. As we gray, we get a little older. I'm too old for this. And there's some truth, some things that need to be said, and I'm going to say them tonight. And so, okay. It's been nice knowing you. No, I hope you take it in love. But it's true of all of us, what I'm about to say and what I'm going to say. It's true of every one of us. And as we grow older, one of the things we do is we slow down. And as we slow down, we're sort of take the attitude of an individual that I know of. And I have been trying all week. I remember the conversation very well. But I don't remember who it was. I even asked Suzanne. She said, I don't know. But I was talking to a man one time, and he was fixing to retire. And I asked him, I said, what are you going to do now that you're retired? He said, nothing. And I said, well, good. You'll have plenty of time for church work. He said, I'm retiring from it too. And there are folks like that. I want us to talk about just basically being too old. Are we really too old? And in some ways, in a roundabout way, we'll ask, what is too old? There are excuses as we grow older that we make. Some of those excuses include our health. Yeah, as we grow older, as a general rule, health is beginning to wane. The hard lifestyle that we did, no matter what it was, the way we drove our bodies and drove ourselves, the amount of work that we did, whether we loved it or not, has taken a toll upon our health. And we're not what we used to be. And we're not. And that's the reality. But sometimes we use that as an excuse. Sometimes we use our memory. Do you remember the man that walked in the room and said he just couldn't remember what he was there for? It happens, doesn't it? It happens. Our memories are not as good. We don't remember as well as we used to. We forget things. We even forget that we were supposed to remember. We forget. We also use the excuse aches and pains. We have aches and pains. Those aches and pains slow us down. Those aches and pains do and are real. They're part of the health issues that we have, but they hurt. And sometimes we don't want to go. Sometimes we don't want to do. And sometimes, truth be known, as we grow older, we can't go. We can't do. It's just physically impossible. It's just a reality. But that's an excuse that we use. And then we also use the excuse, well, there's the speed of life. Life is going by so quickly, and I'm so getting slow. And then we use this excuse. Well, I don't have as much money as I used to have. The income is not as great. Of course, the outgo is not as great either as when we were raising our children or when we were trying to acquire all the things that we have in our house. And then we also use the excuse, been there, done that. In other words, got the T-shirt and got the hat, I'm ready to go. I've already done that before. I did it. I did it back 10 years ago, did it 20 years ago. I used to teach a class 10 years ago. Had a man that he used to remind me. I stayed at Pomona 19 years. He used to remind me. He would say, I taught a class. And I wanted to say when I left Pomona, I've been here 19 years and you've never taught a class. But he used to before I ever got there. But we use that as an excuse. Got the T-shirt, got the hat. I don't have to do it again. Those are excuses that we use. But we have to understand that when we begin to make those excuses, that really and truly there is and there are things that we can do in those golden years of our life. Ray Kroc started McDonald's. He did not start the chain until he was in his 60s, early 60s. Harlan Sanders, Kentucky Fried Chicken, first restaurant, 65 years old when he started it. Winston Churchill, when he became prime minister and really went against Hitler, was 65 years old. And then after he was voted out of that, he went back to the House of Commons at 80 years of age to help legislate. Grandma Moses, 78 years old when she started painting, did masterpieces. Ben Franklin, Declaration of Independence, wrote it. He was 70 years old. You see, age sometimes is mindset. It's what we think, and we have to understand that with our age, there are a lot of myths that occur. There are those that are not, say, in their golden years yet, that say those of us that are in our golden years that we don't have and aren't good for society. That we really have nothing beneficial to offer. That we have nothing of value, nothing of commodities that we can give to folks, give to society. I'm very thankful to be at River Road. Suzanne and I are very grateful for all that's done, for the kindness that's shown to us, for everything that has been done for the 2 years. We hope there's many years in this relationship together. But in the trying out process of trying to find a congregation, there are 4 churches that told me, your age, we really like you, but your age. I'm glad you all didn't say that. I appreciate that. I still believe I have a lot to offer. I do know that I run circles around a lot of younger preachers and can run a lot of circles around a lot of younger preachers because a lot of younger preachers are lazy, to be honest. But so there's a lot of older ones. But there's a lot of myths that go with our age. There's the myth, like I say, we just can't use anybody, or you're just gonna have aches and pains. In those 4 churches that told us, or told me, they didn't tell Suze, but told me that I was too old. There was one of them that I went Sunday morning, taught Bible class, preached then the service, and then was asked to interview with the elders immediately following services, which I did gladly. And when I walked out, about an hour later, we got in the car because we had to go to a restaurant to eat with 3 of the elders. I told Suzanne, I said, we didn't get this job. And she said, well, how do you know? And I said, because they asked me 3 times about my health, till I finally told them, here's my history of my health. And I said, here it is. And finally then, when we sat at the restaurant, one of the elders sat across from me, and twice he said, I just can't believe you'll hold out. I just can't believe you'll hold out. And I said, well, you're going to have to just try me. They chose not to. That's fine. But we have to understand that while people have those thoughts, those foregone conclusions about age, and health, and wealth, there's really a lot of beauty and a lot of blessings in gray hair. There's, my wife has longed for gray hair. I've just longed for hair, to be honest. The realization that I had none came back, we counted it up the other day, we was just talking about 24 years ago. I had carried a group of young people to float the Buffalo River. And I had been gone all day and came in to take a shower. And I came in to take a shower, and my scalp was burning like everything. And I said, what in the world is going on? And I did this, and I was able to catch my glare in the mirror. And I said, I have no hair. My wife said, yeah, I knew that. Oh, I didn't. But there's blessings physically. If you stop and think about it, as we get older, we have more time to do more things that we like. We're not having to punch a clock 40 hours a week. We're not having to be at work. We're not having, I love my child, I love my grandchildren, but I don't have to be at the ball field once or twice a week now. I don't have to be constantly, poor choice of words, but we're going to use it, wrestling with him. Now, like I say, love him to death, and love my grandbaby to death, but it's not something I have to deal with on a daily basis. The blessing of gray hair physically also is that my relationships with folks blossomed. I understand really who I am and where I am and how I fit in. Hopefully I have more wisdom. Elihu, you remember the story of Job? Do you remember that Job lost everything? Job 1, Job 2. And when he lost everything, his friends came, and his friends sat for 7 days. Elihu and Bildad and Zophar, they came and they sat with him. And when they sat with him, first of all, they were taken aback by how bad he looked. Well, you take a man that had lost everything and even had lost health, that he really should have looked bad. But in the fact that he looked bad, they sat there and they tried to explain to him why he went through the problems that he was going through, and he kept contending that they were wrong. And then, in about the 32nd chapter, there comes a young whippersnapper by the name of Elihu. Elihu was a youngin'. And he was a youngin' that knew or thought he knew everything and thought he had all the answers to everything. And Elihu said that it was in the want of years. And you can just see that he says, in the want of years, and the multitude of years should teach wisdom. And he's right. But yet we also know at the same time that not everybody grows wise when they get older. Wisdom does not necessarily come with years and gray hair. But we read as well in Proverbs chapter 16 that the gray hair is a crown of a man, or crown of a person really, if it's found in righteousness. And so spiritually speaking, there's the blessings that come with regards to the fruit of the Spirit in our lives should be in full bloom, should be exemplified beautifully by those of us in our golden years. Why? Because we have been there, we have done that, we have experienced many of those things. But then we have the fact that we have more time to be involved in the work of the church. We have more time to talk to people about the truth. We have more time to pray. We have more time to study the Bible, to grow within our own soul. And so our relationship with our Father blossoms, it grows, builds. And so really and truly, there's blessings in our gray hair. But we have to then remember, I think, three things that are important. First of all, God works with our limitations to accomplish the impossible. That's a mouthful. But when you stop and think about that aspect, you come away with a great appreciation. You come away with a great appreciation that God uses, and God uses us for His glory. Moses was 80 years of age when God called him and told him, I've got my people over here. They need a leader, and I want you to lead them to the promised land. Now, I know we're talking about Bible age, and yet 80 is still 80. And Moses does not come up and say, Lord, I can't go deliver your people because I'm 80 years of age. I can't go and do what you're asking me to do, to go over there and tell Pharaoh to let your people go. Can't do that because I'm too old. At 80 years of age, what did Moses say? I don't have a good repertoire to teach and to talk. And so God says, okay, here's Aaron. He'll be the spokesman. He'll go with you. And so Moses goes. And Moses, we know the story, leads the children of Israel out of bondage. Now, think about that. It was not age that Moses was using to try to stop him. It was his ability to speak. God used his limitations to accomplish the impossible. We may say, preacher, I'm 70. Preacher, I'm slower than I used to be. Preacher, I don't think. Preacher, I don't have the money. Preacher, I understand that. I want you to follow with me through this whole thinking process. But I want you to understand that whatever your limitations are, whatever they are, God can still use you to accomplish His good. And then that leads us to the second idea, that God works with our limitations to move beyond them. Whatever your limitations are, God can use them and go beyond them to help you to accomplish what you need to accomplish. The Bible story I want to tell you, admittedly has nothing to do with age, but it has everything to do with the power of God in going beyond your limitations. There was a little boy named David that went to see his brothers. They were out there fighting. Dad had sent David, he says, go see about your brothers. Carry some supplies and go see how they're doing. And so he goes and he sees his brothers. But while he's there, there's a giant by the name of Goliath, some 9.5 feet tall, walking back and forth. And make a long story short, he's ridiculing the children of Israel. He's ridiculing David's brothers. He's ridiculing David. He's ridiculing their people. You know what David says? Who's that? And the brothers, shh, that's Goliath. Okay. Well, what's so big about him? Well, we ain't got anybody that wants to fight him. And we're really at a stalemate here because we haven't got anybody that's here to fight him. David says, I'll go. Be quiet. You're a youth. You're a little kid. You're a kid. Shut up. Hush. You can hear his brothers now just talking. David says, I'll go. So, okay. We'll send David. So they put armor on him, and he can't stand up under the armor. But now you remember David was a little shepherd boy. Shepherds were notorious for having the ability to use a sling. Marksmen. They were some of the best. And so David cannot wear the armor and puts the 5 stones in his pocket as he gathers them by the brook Kidron, and he puts one as he goes out. And as Goliath makes fun of him, he goes out, David does, he puts the stone in his sling, he whirls it around his head, he lets go of one string and pop, kills Goliath. Goliath's head's cut off. The children of Israel, if you will, David's folks, David's brothers, they all come back. They're war heroes. David is a war hero. God used his limitations to go beyond his limitations to win a victory. Whatever your limitations are, God can use you to go beyond your limitations. But thirdly, God works with our limitations to remind us of his greatness. We do have limitations. All of us do. You know, we all have different abilities, different talents. We all have things we can do and things we can't do. I can't lead singing. I appreciate so much Jim and Steve and Billy when he gets up here, and you know, even Jay, don't tell him. But I appreciate those guys that lead singing. Because I can't do it. Walked into a preacher's workshop last month now. I walked into it, and as I was walking into it, Les said, "Paul, do you lead singing?" I said, "Nope." He said, "That sure was a fast answer." I said, "You should have heard me sing." He said, "Okay." But the limitations that we have that are real, we have to understand that they're really for the greatness of God. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul talks about his thorn in the flesh. That's a great story because I want to preach a lesson here soon on it, but it's a great story because Paul talks about whatever his thorn in the flesh was. He talks about going to the Lord 3 times and asking for it to be removed. We all know that story, and it was not removed. God's answer was, though, that my grace is sufficient for you, my strength is made perfect weakness. Paul then responds, most glad therefore their glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ be seen, shown forth. We have limitations, but we still understand that the limitations are really to show us who's in control. That we're not in control. God's in control. Our prayer really should be, God, use me as I am, where I am, to do what I can to those where they are. And so, while our gray hair is a blessing, we need to understand, remember that we do have limitations, but they're for God's glory, for God's greatness, to remind us, to keep us humble, but also in keeping us humble, know that God can still use us in the midst of our limitations. And so we get to this question then. There should be a question mark there. What can we do in our golden years? I think, first of all, we have to attempt the impossible. The children of Israel are led by Joshua. It was a military success for the children of Israel to overtake the land. Remember? Joshua led them out of the wilderness, if you will, into the promised land. In Joshua chapter 14, Caleb comes to Joshua, and Joshua is looking at, how are we going to settle this and who gets what and who goes where. And in Joshua chapter 14, there's a man by the name of Caleb. Joshua would have known him well because Joshua and Caleb were the 2 spies that came back and said, we can overtake this land. Remember? We talked about that not long ago. We can do this. We can overtake this land. And the other 10 came back and said, nope, can't do it. Can't do it. Well, Joshua now is dividing the land out, and Caleb comes and he says, hey, Joshua, I want here. I want those people there. They were said to be giants. They were also ruthless people. They needed to be settled. The land, the area needed to be settled. They were not the easiest of folks to settle. Now, here's the remarkable thing about the story in Joshua 14. As Caleb is approaching Joshua with the idea of, let me look back, and he says, good old buddy Joshua, you remember when I was 40 years of age and Moses came and told us to go spy out the land? And I'm sure Joshua's going, yeah. He says, well, now it's 45 years later. I'm 85. At 85 years of age, Caleb is not saying, give me that land that nobody's at. Give me that land where it's all, it's everything's easy. It's easy going. There's no rough spots. There's houses there I can just go inhabit, or I can just go, in an area and set up my tent. Give me some of the well-watered, well-fertile land. It'll all be, just give me the easy part. He doesn't say that. He takes the most difficult challenge that he could imagine, and he says, let me at it. The first thing you can do is attempt the impossible. I'm reminded of a story. Matter of fact, it's a lady that, not this congregation, not even Dixon congregation before. She came in my office one day. She was one of the elders' wives. Loved her dearly. She came in, she was talking to me, and she said, I don't understand why we can't. And I said, but we can. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, why can't we? And she stopped and she said, well, you're right. Why can't we? And it was, I don't remember the exact program she wanted, but it had something to do with the ladies' program. Now they have a yearly ladies' day. They also have a monthly ladies' devotional after church, one Sunday night of the month at one of them's homes. They have a whole ladies' ministry. But it's all because this lady said she was very frustrated with the elders, her husband being one of them. I don't understand why we can't. And I said, I don't understand, what's stopping you. And with that, she put everything into motion. You see, sometimes we have to attempt the impossible, no matter what it is. But then secondly, we need to add a little wood. We need to add a little wood. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was asked how it was that he was able to write in his older years. How is it that you're able to write? How is it you're able to do in your older years? And Henry Wadsworth Longfellow said, look at that apple tree right there. He said, that thing's been here for as long as I can remember. And he said, it's never more beautiful than it is right now. All the blossoms, they were beautiful. And he said, I've never seen any more beautiful. He said, but I figure that each year that tree adds a little bit more wood. And as it adds a little more wood, it just gets a little prettier, it gets a little bigger, it's a little stronger. And the blossoms that are so beautiful now are because this past year it's added a little more wood. We need to add a little more wood. We need to get a little stronger, do a little more, push a little harder. Each year, physically. What have you added physically? Take a class, get online and learn something. Read a dictionary. You might say, well, I gained nothing from a dictionary. Do you know that if you learn one word a week, you're adding a little wood? You want to add a little wood spiritually? Do you know that if you'll read 3 chapters a day, every day, and on Sunday, just read 2 because you are coming to church, that within a quarter, within 3 months, you can have the New Testament read? You know, if you read 8 chapters a day, you can have it read in a month. Why not add a little wood? Why not try? Fill in the gaps. Fill in the gaps. There's a lot of gaps in your life. Fill them in. Find a need and fill it is the answer to success. One man was asked. He said he was very successful, and they said, how is it that you found success? And he said, I simply find a need and then I fill it. I don't watch it as much. Suzanne and I don't watch it as much as we used to, but we used to watch Shark Tank. I don't know if you watch Shark Tank, but it's where people bring in ideas and they have a group of investors, and if it's a good idea, then they'll invest in it, and for 30% of your company, I'll give you $1 million and we go together. Okay, sounds good. So then they work out the deal behind the scenes, but at least the preliminaries are right there on TV. When you look at all of the things that are brought in, the ultimate reason they're brought in is because someone saw a need, whatever that need was. They saw this particular need. They saw a mom needed this, or children needed that, or this project or that project. They saw a need, and so they were starting a company. That's success. Find a need and fill it. Whatsoever your hand finds to do with all your might. Solomon said in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 10. Fill in the gaps. What are you going to do with your golden years? Stay beautiful. Stay beautiful. How important it is to stay beautiful. It's hard though, isn't it? As we grow older, what happens? We usually get a little more cranky. We usually get a little more irritable. We have a little bit more time, so what do? We spend a little bit more time gossiping. We don't mind insulting people because, after all, we can speak our mind. We've gotten to that point. Yet, those things really don't need to be a part of any Christian's life, no matter what age. The reality is, and the truth is, we need to stay beautiful. We need to remember how good it is. Keep a good attitude is important. Keep a smile on your face. Keep a song in your heart. And when you do that, there'll be a pep in your step and a glide in your stride that you'll be thankful for. But stay beautiful. Keep a positive approach. I know, we get back to the excuses. I know, money is not as prevalent. I know aches and pains are coming. I know these excuses happen. Learn to stay beautiful. Learn to stay with a good attitude. Then keep focus. Keep your focus. What's your focus? I would hope that your focus is on Jesus. I would hope that you would, as the Hebrew writer talks about in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame. Remember what your purpose is. Our purpose in life is to glorify God. Psalm 29, verse 2. And as we do that by changing into the very image of Jesus Christ. And as we conform, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18, into the very image of Jesus Christ, we're keeping our focus. That our focus is really heaven. If I were to ask you, what's your purpose? I would hope that you would say, well, my purpose in life is really to help as many people as I can get to heaven. I was talking to a man Monday in Dixon. I had to go back to Dixon Monday and do a funeral for a lady. I had done one for her husband, and the family requested me. And it's a family I've known for a long time, and wonderful, wonderful family. And I was asking a guy there, because when I left Dixon, I knew he was in between jobs. And I said, so what are you doing now? Well, he was telling me he was, for one of these centers, he was driving a van, and carrying people to the doctor and carrying them to the hospital and that kind of things. And I said, man, that'd be a great job for you. And I said, I think that'd be a great job. Yeah. He said, to help people, to be able to help. He said, that's what I like about it. I can talk to people, I can talk with people, and I can get to know them. Well, that's what we need to do. As we get older, we need to understand that there are things that can be done that we can do. No, we can't do it all. But we have to ask, what can we do? Well, we can do what we can do. In the parable of the talents, remember the story, the 5-talent man, the 2-talent man, the 1 talent, each one was given a talent according to his ability, right? The 5-talent man gained 5 more talents, 2-talent man gained 2 more talents, 1-talent man went and hid his talent because he was afraid. And in being afraid, he said, I was afraid, and so I went and I hid my talent. And the Lord rebuked him. Why? Because he went and he hid what he had. We may not can do everything we used to could do. I think that's true of all of us. But what we have to do is find out what we can do. You know, like I said with the prayer ministry when we started that here a couple of weeks ago, I made the statement that those that say they can't come to church, but they can listen to our services. They can be a part of the prayer ministry. All they have to do is tell me. See, sometimes we have to reevaluate what we can do. But like the parable of the talents, we need to use whatever talents we have and whatever abilities we have. It may be a little slower. It may not be as rich. It may not be everything it used to be, but it is what it is today and what it can be. And so, the lady began and she said, I can't do this. I'm just too old for this. Well, she had her family and she raised her daughter, or is in the process, actually. It's an ongoing story. She and her husband of raising her child, although the other children have gotten grown. And so it is that we need to be reminded that as Christians, we can't retire. Our retirement day is not when we turn 65. It's not when we turn 67. It's not when we turn 62. Our retirement day is when the Lord calls us home. Slow down? Yes. Change our ministry? Sure. Find something else to do? Yes. But as long as we remember our purpose and our focus and our aim, we can do what we can do and do it to the best of our ability. This evening, if you're not a New Testament child of God, or you need to rededicate your life, our prayer is that you'll come. While together we stand and sing.